What's the first thing that you think of when you hear the word courage?
The Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because that's what he's on his, each of the characters in The Wizard of Oz have something that they're lacking, right?
Yeah.
If I only had a brain, if I only had a heart, the nerve, whatever. And the Cowardly Lion is just so afraid of everything because he has no confidence, no self esteem. He doesn't have the ability, the inward ability to go through danger zones. And so when he gets to the Wizard of Oz gives him courage so that he can proceed with life in dangerous situations and not be freaked out every time.
And that courage was in him the whole time.
It was in him the
He
whole
just
time. He
he
needed
just didn't
someone
know
to
it.
tell him that I'm giving you courage. Yeah.
Put him up, put him up. That's a horrible, horrible example or a horrible reaction.
Yeah.
Uh, I think
Actually, it was pretty
courage
good. It was actually pretty good.
was it
I
okay.
enjoyed it.
I think courage, just like you can build muscles by doing curls in the gym and eating protein. You can build courage. Anybody can build courage by trying hard things and proving to yourself that, wow, I can do that. Even just little things like running a 5K for once and for all. Oh gosh, I can do that. Then maybe that turns into running full marathons. You just never know until you put yourself in the position to try. Charlie Munger had a thing once where he was talking at a banquet about that, and he said, we just need to try things and put ourselves in positions where we can prove to ourselves that we can do things, and if you fail, learn from that failure, and that's how you build up the courage. And then when opportunity shows up in your life, you can have that deep, deep knowing that I got this because of all the times I tried in the past, and I believe in myself and I can do it this time. And that doesn't just happen. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that we have to develop and build.
And all of those examples are like really easy to apply to like external things. So, like running a 5K is a great example. I was thinking about this the other day when I was kind of like down on myself about where I am with my Muay Thai training. Like, why isn't it clicking? And then I was reminding myself that I just started this a year ago and I have no idea really what I'm doing. I just show up every week, and that I should reward myself for the fact that I just show up and I'm brave enough to do so time and time and time again, instead of being so harsh and critical of myself about my progress or lack thereof or whatever. But aside from like the external things, there's also this internal confidence that builds that's in there. It's in there, like you said about the Cowardly Lion, right? It's already in there. It's just we haven't practiced enough. We haven't exercised the muscle. And then that courage bleeds into the ability to communicate properly. It bleeds into your ability to stand up for what you believe and know to be right and to feel right for you in your relationships, in your job. So, not just these like physical situations or like challenges that you put yourself into, but also then just the day to day tasks and decisions that we're faced with. We have this built in courage that's been exercised, that's ready to go when it needs to. The definition
It's
of courage is mental and moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. So that applies to like literally everything in life. I mean, we all fear a lot of things because our ego jumps in to protect us. And then we're nervous about the outcome or about looking stupid or what if I can't do that or what if I hurt someone's feelings, right? So just exercising and developing courage is that's the definition of it is strengthening the ability to do any and all of those things.
so you mentioned, well, I mentioned the external thing, like running a 5K, and then that could turn into running marathons and just building up the courage to do it. What are some things? What's the inside game here? Like, what are some things that a person could do if they want to build courage, you know, for other areas, not just doing an event?
I mean, that's a great question. For me, I struggle with vulnerability and intimacy.
Okay.
And so I have to lace up my shoes and go hit the pavement to be trained and ready for a 5K. So just like that, I have to lace up my internal shoes and hit the pavement. It starts with my inner dialogue. So it may not come out initially right away to you or to whoever I'm, having a vulnerable or intimate moment with, but it starts with me and my thought process of how do I really feel about that? Why do I feel that way? And really understanding and inquiring and being curious with myself first so that I have a deep rooted understanding of what my initial reservation and fear is in the first place. If I can understand that internally with myself, with my inner dialogue, my courage increases because my confidence in knowing myself is increased. And then my ability to communicate that has exponentially increased by simply starting inside. So I'm not like, I suppose you could. I'm not like looking in the mirror, like practicing what I'm going to say to you, for example, but I've practiced it in my mind, maybe when it's something that I'm really uncomfortable with. I've run through the scenarios of like expressing myself and what that looks like so that when I'm faced with a reaction from you or, a response from you, I won't just turtle shell back up. I don't get it right every time. It takes so much practice. It's just an ongoing, long practice that constantly evolves.
That's perfect. And you do work in that area. And another area for someone out there listening that might be very, eye opening would be maybe in their career. We don't think about that, but maybe in a job or position that you feel like, maybe you're stuck or you don't, you feel not feeling fulfilled. Maybe building the courage up would look like going to your manager and saying, "Hey, I'm really good at this. I've got a good handle on this. Is there anything else I could take off of your plate that I could maybe start doing to make your life easier?" I don't know a single manager or business owner out there that would not appreciate an employee coming to them with that scenario.
Right.
And what would happen then is like, say like there's some report that they have to do every Friday, but you say, "Hey, I'll take that off your plate and I'll do that." And by doing that, it might build this confidence and courage that, hey, I can handle this, I can do this. And it will build these extra skills that will eventually help you maybe become a next level in that company, or you just never know where that's going to branch off to. But having the courage to at least ask the question and try is what's going to build more courage for you.
And back to the self, like there are a lot of people who, myself included, have worked or have to work out of necessity, right? I mean, we all have to pay our bills, but still feel this lack in purpose or aren't feeling fulfilled with what we're doing. And so it takes courage to say, I'm going to dedicate and invest in myself the time that's required for me to really pursue what it is that I love as an option or an opportunity in the future for something that I can do to also make a living. So not just the courage maybe to like move up in a company, but also the courage to say, what's working for me? What do I enjoy about what I do in anything? So not even just a job, but just like, what do I enjoy doing? And am I brave enough to try different things to be able to consistently implement that into my life? You see it time and time again in examples of the people, the leaders, the leadership, the mentors that we have. They're brave enough to try new things because they're not afraid to fail, because they know that failure doesn't define them. It's just simply an attempt at the next thing. And if we can kind of change that narrative, that inner dialogue, whether it's emotionally or about a job or about a physical endeavor, just across the board, exercise that courage muscle, we're able to take on so much more than we probably give ourselves credit for ever. It's always in there. It's always in there. It's just suppressed.
And just remembering that it doesn't have to be perfect. Progress, not perfection. And it's pretty limitless what you can do, but you got to first believe in yourself, and building that belief, building that courage isn't something that's going to happen overnight. It's going to take little wins, little victories. One of the great mentors out there today, Alex Hormozi, just today I saw it. He said, you're not going to build courage by just yelling at yourself in the mirror mantras and, I'm the best. It's, you're going to do it by showing yourself you can do it through trying, putting yourself out there, failing, succeeding. And that's going to build that inner dialogue, that story that I can do this.
Yeah.
I don't need a lot of courage to go get gas at the gas station. I know how to do that. I've done it a million times.
Right.
But the first time I ever did it, I was probably nervous. I don't remember it, but I was probably like, all right, what do I do? What buttons do I hit? I don't want to mess something up.
Right.
So that's just a real simple example. But if I would have been like, I'm just never going to get gas. It scares me too much. I don't want to get gas.
That opens up like a whole new level to understand in a deep internal way. Like, remember when you were a little kid and you just kind of like went for it and you didn't really think about consequences? Like, part of that's frontal lobe development, but also we didn't have any pains. Like, we didn't have the examples of failing. We didn't have the examples of being made fun of. We didn't have the pain of like trying something and not getting it. We just went for it, and whatever happened was awesome,
Mm-hmm.
And then as adults, we've like succumbed to this fear because of social pressure, succumbed to this fear because of the expectations that we put on ourselves in our relationships, just across the board. Again, back to, it's always been in there. It was in there and it was working really well. And then we, through learned behaviors, stopped using it. And when we revisit it, it works, it works, it works, and it builds confidence.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important for young people out there, people in their teens and in their 20s, to try stuff. Don't feel like you have to go to college at 18 and start doing something because you got to fit into society's box. Like, try stuff. Don't be afraid to. At that young age, there's not a lot on the line. There's not a lot of people relying on you. Hopefully you have the freedom to explore and try things and see the world and see kind of where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're, in your 40s, you have a mortgage, you have bills, you have a family, you have all these other responsibilities. It's a lot harder. It's more restrictive just naturally. So your lane's a little smaller. But when you're younger, try stuff, make a mess, go for it. Just try the business, just because you just never know. Again, that's going to be when you build your courage up. So when you're 30 or 40, you have this lifetime of stories in your head of like, remember when I was 20 and I got gas, and remember when I was 25 and I went to New York, or whatever. Just the stories you tell yourself are going to be how you operate.
That's right. We are the stories we tell ourselves. So whether it's our ego protecting us or our courage muscle that needs to be strengthened, it's really all what happens between the 6 inches between your ears,
Yeah.
Easier said than done. I mean, yeah. I was having this very conversation with myself, like I mentioned already, about my Muay Thai training. And, I live it and I talk about it a lot. We do that, like, just whatever you want to do, just start. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're not going to get it right. No one's paying attention. Like, just do it. And I do that, but it doesn't really make it any easier, even though that's the whole premise, which is what I was thinking about the other day. It's kind of confusing. Like, the idea is that if I just start, it'll get easier to just start doing things because I'll build the courage, I'll build the confidence. And I guess it does get easier to just kind of do that as a habit, but it doesn't really make it easier because there's always this like crippling self-doubt that sneaks in. I guess that's what makes us tick, though, right? If we had it all figured out, we would never strive to try new things to begin with. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, honestly. But habits, practice, lacing up the sneakers, hitting the pavement, that's what does it. Sarah Blakely's dad would ask her, "What did you fail at today?" And I just think that is so interesting and also so helpful to implement from a young age, because if you get good at asking yourself that at a young age, or get used to answering it as a kid to your parents, you're going to continue to do that because you have practiced doing it. So when you start trying new things or go for big things or try to develop emotionally, failure isn't scary anymore. It's really just an analysis at that point
Yeah.
of like what worked, what didn't.
But see, someone listening to this right now might be in a spot where they don't have the courage to even step foot in the Muay Thai gym or the boxing gym
Sure.
or to go to the gym.
Yeah.
So they need courage to do that. And you're at a spot where you're like, there's always the what's next, what's next, what's next. That's all, the sickness that we have when we're, motivated and we're trying to do stuff. And it's like that courage to do it in the first place took years of building up courage in other areas to say, I'm going to go do Muay Thai kickboxing or I'm going to go skydiving. It's built up over time. And there is no secret to it. It's just reps,
Reps.
No matter what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's what I meant when I was talking about as little kids, we have it in us and then it's kind of stripped away as we go along and consequences pop up and then we're afraid to try and we stop exercising courage because we get comfortable and it's like, I'm just going to hang out here. Everything is good here. I don't need to be vulnerable. I don't need to express myself. I don't need to change jobs. I don't need to run a marathon. I'm good here. And that's fine too. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with like assessing where you are and appreciating where you are. But if the intention is just to stay safe, that's dangerous. That's a danger zone in and of itself. Our ability to put ourselves in dangerous situations by being vulnerable or being new is exactly what allows us to unlock that next level. But it's just such a weird cycle. It's just such a weird cycle. I sit here after years and years and years of putting myself in situations that have been vulnerable or dangerous and, very physically challenging.
Are you making up a word there? Vulnerous?
Vulnerous.
Vulnerable and dangerous? She's very vulnerous.
We can go with that. That's fun. But like, putting yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable, years and years and years of practice of that. And last year I had one hell of a year of doing that and it was awesome and I feel great, but that doesn't mean I wake up tomorrow, even with those reps or with that practice and just feel like, well, hell, I can just do whatever I want. I still have to like talk myself up. I still have to address that, any fear that lives inside of me, but it's gotten a little easier to recognize. It's gotten a little easier to understand and to, initiate, but it doesn't make the action any easier most of the time, That's why I think it's such a vicious cycle. That's why it's confusing. That's why it's hard. And I suppose it should be. Right? So I'll leave you with this with regard to courage. There's a variation of the word encourage. And that's a very important variation of that word. We need to encourage ourselves through reinforcement. We need to encourage each other through acceptance and empathy. We need to be cheerleaders for ourselves and for everyone else. So when you think about courage and when you're driven by fear and you're not sure and you're safe here and I've got to really push myself to try something new and it takes courage and you're exercising that muscle and you're building that up and you're getting used to it, don't forget the variation of the word encourage and continue to do that for yourself and others.
Awesome. Yes.